Chapter 23, Part 1 of The Pirate's Own Book. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Barry Eads. The Pirate's Own Book by Charles Elms. Chapter 23, Part 1 of the West India Pirates. Containing accounts of their atrocities, manners of living, etc., and proceedings of the squadron under Commodore Porter in those seas, the victory and death of Lieutenant Allen, the interesting narrative of Captain Lincoln, etc. Those innumerable groups of islands, keys, and sandbanks, known as the West Indies, are peculiarly adapted from their locality and formation to be a favorite resort for pirates. Many of them are composed of coral rocks, on which a few cocoa trees raise their lofty heads. Where there is sufficient earth for vegetation between the interstices of the rocks, stunted brushwood grows. But a chief peculiarity of some of the islands, and which renders them suitable to those who frequent them as pirates, are the numerous caves with which the rocks are perforated. Some of them are above high water mark, but the majority with the sea water flowing in and out of them, in some cases merely rushing in at high water filling deep pools, which are detached from each other when the tide recedes, in others with a sufficient depth of water to allow a large boat to float in. It is hardly necessary to observe how convenient the higher and dry caves are as receptacles for articles which are intended to be concealed, until an opportunity occurs to dispose of them. The Bahamas themselves are a singular group of isles, reefs, and quays, consisting of several hundred in number, and were the chief resort of pirates in old times, but now they are all rooted from them. They are low and not elevated, and are more than 600 miles in extent, cut up into numerous intricate passages and channels, full of sunken rocks and coral reefs. They afforded a sure retreat to desperadoes. Other islands are full of mountain fastnesses, where all pursuit can be eluded. Many of the low shores are skirted, and the islands covered by the mangrove, a singular tree, shooting fresh roots as it grows, which, when the tree is at its full age, may be found 6 or 8 feet from the ground, to which the shoots gradually tend in regular succession. The leaf is very thick and stiff, and about 8 inches long and 9 wide. The interval between the roots offers secure hiding places for those who are suddenly pursued. Another circumstance assists the pirates when pursued. As the islands belong to several different nations, when pursued from one island he can pass to that under the jurisdiction of another power, and as permission must be got by those in pursuit of him, from the authorities of the island to land and take him, he thus gains time to secrete himself. A tropical climate is suited to a roving life, and liquor as well as dissolute women being in great abundance, to gratify him during his hours of relaxation, makes this a congenial region for the lawless. The crews of pirate vessels in these areas are chiefly composed of Spaniards, Portuguese, French, mulattoes, negroes, and a few natives of other countries. The island of Cuba is the great nest of pirates at the present day, and at Havana piracy is as much tolerated as any other profession. As the piracies committed in these seas during a single year have amounted to more than 50, we shall give only a few accounts of the most interesting. In November, 1821, the brig Robiscanti, Captain Jackson, sailed from Havana, on the morning of the 8th for Boston, and on the evening of the same day, about 4 miles from the Moro, was brought to by a piratical sloop containing about 30 men. A boat from her, with 10 men, came alongside, and soon after they got on board, commenced plundering. They took nearly all the clothing from the captain and mate, all the cooking utensils and spare rigging, unrove part of the running rigging, cut the small cable, broke the compasses, cut the mast coats to pieces, took from the captain his watch and 4 boxes cigars, and from the cargo 3 bales cochineal and 6 boxes cigars. They beat the mate unmercifully, and hung him up by the neck under the maintop. They also beat the captain severely, broke a large broadsword across his back, and ran a long knife through his thigh, so that he almost bled to death. Captain Jackson saw the sloop at Regla the day before. Captain Jackson informs us, and we have also been informed by other persons from the Havana, that this system of piracy is openly countenanced by some of the inhabitants of that place, who say that it is a retaliation on the Americans for interfering against the slave trade. About this time the ship Liverpool packet Ricker, of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, was boarded off Cape San Antonio, Cuba, by two piratical schooners. Two barges containing 30 or 40 men, robbed the vessel of everything movable, even of her flags, rigging, and a boat which happened to be afloat, having a boy in it, which belonged to the ship. They held a consultation whether they should murder the crew, as they had done before, or not; in the meantime taking the ship into anchoring ground. On bringing her to anchor, the crew saw a brig close alongside, burnt to the water's edge, and 3 dead bodies floating near her. The pirates said they had burnt the brig the day before, and murdered all the crew, and intended doing the same with them. They said, "Look at the turtles," meaning the dead bodies; "you will soon be the same." They said the vessel was a Baltimore brig, which they had robbed and burnt, and murdered the crew as before stated, of which they had little doubt. Captain Ricker was most shockingly bruised by them. The mate was hung till he was supposed to be dead, but came to, and is now alive. They told the captain that they belonged in Regla, and should kill them all to prevent discovery. In 1822 the United States had several cruisers among the West India Islands to keep the pirates in check. Much good was done, but still many vessels were robbed and destroyed, together with their crews. This year the brave Lieutenant Allen fell by the hand of pirates; and receiving intelligence at Matanzas that several vessels which had sailed from that port had been taken by pirates, and were then in the Bay of Lejuapo, he hastened to their assistance. He arrived just in time to save 5 sails of vessels which he found in possession of a gang of pirates, 300 strong, established in the Bay of Lejuapo, about 15 leagues east of this. He fell, pierced by 2 musket balls, in the van of a division of boats, attacking their principal vessel, a fine schooner of about 80 tons, with a long 18-pounder on a pivot, and 4 smaller guns, with the bloody flag nailed to the mast. Himself, Captain Freeman of Marines, and 12 men were in the boat, much in advance of his other boats, and even took possession of the schooner, after a desperate resistance, which nothing but a bravery almost too daring could have overcome. The pirates, all but one, escaped by taking to their boats and jumping overboard, before the Alligator's boat reached them. 2 other schooners escaped by the use of their oars, the wind being light. Captain Allen survived about 4 hours, during which his conversation evinced a composure and firmness of mind, and correctness of feeling, as honourable to his character, and more consoling to his friends, than even the dauntless bravery he before exhibited. The surgeon of the Alligator, in a letter to a friend, says, "He continued giving orders and conversing with Mr. Dale and the rest of us until a few minutes before his death, with a degree of cheerfulness that was little to be expected from a man in his condition. He said he wished his relatives and his country to know that he had fought well, and added that he died in peace and good will towards all the world, and hoped for his reward in the next." Lieutenant Allen had but few equals in the service. He was ardently devoted to the interest of his country, was brave, intelligent, and accomplished in his profession. He displayed, living and dying, a magnanimity that sheds lustre on his relatives, his friends, and his country. About this time Captain Lincoln fell into the hands of the pirates; and as his treatment shows the peculiar habits and practices of these wretches, we insert the very interesting narrative of the captain. The schooner Exertion, Captain Lincoln, sailed from Boston, bound for Trinidad de Cuba, November 13th, 1821, with the following crew: Joshua Brackett, mate; David Warren, cook; and Thomas Young, Francis de Suze, and George Reed, seamen. The cargo consisted of flour, beef, pork, lard, butter, fish, beans, onions, potatoes, apples, hams, furniture, sugar box shooks, etc., invoiced at about $8,000. Nothing remarkable occurred during the passage, except much bad weather, until my capture, which was as follows: Monday, December 17th, 1821. Commenced with fine breezes from the eastward. At daybreak saw some of the islands northward of Cape Cruz, called Keys. Stood along northwest. Everything now seemed favourable for a happy termination of our voyage. At 3 o'clock P.M. saw a sail coming round one of the keys, into a channel called Boca de Cavolone by the chart, nearly in latitude 20 degrees 55 minutes north, longitude 79 degrees 55 minutes west. She made directly for us with all sails set, sweeps on both sides, the wind being light, and was soon near enough for us to discover